So, a very, very warm welcome to everyone. I'm so glad that you're here. And this session is called What's Getting in the Way? Going beyond limiting beliefs and reconnecting with your creativity. So, I'm Caroline Inkle. I'm an artist and a creative coach, and I help people reconnect with their creative freedom and their creative confidence. That's what I'm doing here today. I'm doing this work because I believe that each one of us is creative. We are creative, we're connected, we're capable of being excited to wake up every day, to follow our inspiration and to see what's popping up in our imagination and see where our curiosity is taking us. So I'm here to help you reconnect with your creativity and feel free to do that. Feel free to play and explore. Like I've said many times before, I really believe that creativity is our birthright. It helps us connect to ourselves, to each other, and it helps us to align with and tune into our place as part of this beautiful natural world that we share. So I feel like it's a really powerful force to connect us to ourselves and each other. So that's why I'm here doing this work, and that's why I'm passionate about helping you to tap into your creative freedom and to make and do all the beautiful things, all the projects, all the dreams, all these wonderful ideas that you have inside you. I want to give you that freedom and that joy to feel like you can do that, because you can. So that's why I'm here. So a little bit about today's topic, which is what is getting in the way, going beyond limiting beliefs and reconnecting with your creativity. So the first part of the year is often where we plan and dream. So we may have been setting big goals for the year ahead. We might have been creating vision boards and really tuning into what it is that we want in the coming year. There's often a lot of energy, it's a fresh start, it's the kind of beginning of something, lots of good intentions. And sometimes that just flows beautifully. Our creativity just flows beautifully, things unfold, we feel like we can take the steps we need to take. And when it does, that's absolutely wonderful and should be celebrated. But that's not always the case. Often we can feel a little bit stuck. We can sometimes experience self-doubt. We might have a little bit of fear creeping in, fear of failure, or there might just be something lurking in the background that feels like it's holding us back. Or if we make a start, it may be kind of restricting us. So if that's the case, it may be that there is an old belief in there in us that's just ready to be questioned. So that's what we're here to do today. So that's what we're here to explore together. So we'll look at how hidden beliefs, unhelpful thinking or limiting beliefs about creativity can form, and how you can start to move beyond them by identifying them, and we'll work through a series of steps to do that. So I would really love, by the end of this is the goal, for you to have identified one of these unhelpful thoughts or limiting beliefs, whatever we want to call them, and have moved through the steps to begin to question, reframe that belief, and then go away from the session with a little bit of an experiment, something to try to test it. So that's what we're going to do today. And this really affects almost everyone on a creative path. We all have these ideas about ourselves. We all have certain kind of ingrained ways of thinking, stories about who we are, what's possible for us, that aren't always that helpful. So we can call them limiting beliefs, we could call them ingrained beliefs, or could just call them unhelpful ideas that we have about ourselves. So some of you that are here may not feel like you're creative at all. That's not true. If that's you, you are, because everyone is. But everybody is welcome here. So you may not feel like that's, you may have that as a limiting belief, like I'm not a creative person. That would be really, really common. And other people who are here, you may see yourselves already as being creative. You might even be professional creatives, but something gets in the way from time to time, or you feel held back by doubt, comparison, fear of judgment, or sometimes a loss of confidence. And all that is just really, really common. I think it's probably really everybody experiences this, because it's just kind of how we work as humans. It's part of our protection mechanism, and it's just kind of how we work as humans. We have ideas. We sometimes get them from, well, we don't know where we get them from often, but sometimes we just kind of hold on to unhelpful ideas, and until we question them and bring them to the light, they can just kind of lurk around in the background and sometimes trip us up unconsciously. So really, like I said, limiting beliefs, they're just habitual thoughts that we've maybe come to accept as truth about ourselves, even though really all they are is just ideas. And like I've said before, it's action, it's what we do that counts, not generally what we think about it. So I'm not saying they're not powerful, but what you choose to do is a lot more powerful than what you think about it. So today we'll just explore one belief that might be holding you back creatively. And like I said, we'll do this by moving through 7 clear, simple steps. And it's not going to take a long time, but for each of the steps, I'll just ask you a prompt question that you can reflect on. And you can reflect on this to yourself, in your mind, in your journal, if you have a journal with you, or in the comments or the classroom section here. So we'll be moving through 7 steps, and those steps are to identify the limiting belief or unhelpful thought. That's the first step, bringing it out into the light, seeing what you're dealing with. Then understanding the origin, just recognizing where it comes from. Then understanding the function, because usually if we've held on to unhelpful thinking, it's become a kind of belief or something we have held on to about ourselves. There's usually a reason. So it's usually protecting us from something, or we feel like it's doing a job of protecting us from something. So it's good to kind of understand what that is, and then we can look at reframing and transforming that belief. And then we can set ourselves a little experiment. So take some action to kind of test out the validity of this thinking and try something new and see what happens. Be curious. Exercise our curiosity and our creativity and see what happens when we try something different. And this can be a really small, gentle step. So nothing to worry about. So before we dive into moving through the steps, why don't we just take a moment to settle together, to just arrive and settle into the body. So just a little moment to just arrive together and just ground together, a little moment of grounding. So if you find a comfortable position, a position where you feel your body can be supported, and you could be sitting or lying down, just however you are is fine. And if it's safe to do so, and you're not driving, of course, if you're listening to this on your phone, you could just gently close your eyes if you choose to do so. And then maybe taking a slow, deeper breath in through your nose. Just pause briefly at the top and then exhale through your mouth, letting it all out. Again, breathing in nice and deeply, and then just letting it out, maybe with a soft sigh, if that's helpful. And then as you allow your breathing to just settle into its own natural rhythm, Just notice the support beneath you, whether that's the chair or the ground, the floor or the bed, just holding you without effort. And you can let your shoulders soften and your jaw unclench. Just let your hands rest easily wherever they fall. And as you breathe, with each exhale, just imagine any tension melting away. Melting away from your face, from your neck, from your chest and your belly and your legs, and just draining out of you all the way down into the earth. With nothing to do, nothing to achieve, just arriving here, ready and curious as to what might emerge through our reflections together. So now, if you're ready, if your eyes are closed, just open them again. And we'll begin. Like I said, these limiting beliefs or unhelpful thoughts can often hide in plain sight. So they're very present, but we're often not looking at them directly. They can often be spotted by sounding like they are facts in our mind. So some examples might be if you hear yourself saying things like, well, I'm not creative. Just as if it was a fact. I'm not creative. Or, for example, it might be something like, I used to be creative, but I lost it along the way. Or other people are more talented. Things like this, but they can often come out of our mouths, or we hear them in our minds, and they sound very clear and very definite. And that's maybe a good indication that it's something that can be questioned. So for some people, ideas and beliefs like this stop them from even starting in the first place, even trying a creative project. And for others, they show up after you've already started, and they start to slow your progress and make you question yourself and just generally be unhelpful and get in the way. Yeah, be curious to know if this resonates with you. So feel free to type in the comments or the classroom and let me know if that resonates with you and how that has shown up for you, either in when you've tried to begin starting a project, or when you've made steps to move towards your creative goals and then you find yourself getting stuck. So we'll move on to the first step in this process, and that is bringing this belief to the light. So identifying what is this, or what is one limiting belief that we can look at and question today. So like I said, it might be something that's just operating quietly in the background, but presenting itself as if it's a fact. And the first step is to notice it. The first step is to identify it. And then we are more free and more conscious of it. And we can start questioning it and reframing it and making choices around it, rather than it just being an assumption that's in the background and that's laying the foundation of our creative journey. Let's bring it out into the light and see what it is, so that we can decide, is this something that I want to question? Is this something that I want to curiously experiment with and test and see, well, is it really true? Take a moment now to notice any beliefs that you have about your creative abilities, your creativity, or the project that you're working on, and see if you can bring it out into the light. So to do this, maybe think about something creative that you'd love to explore. So if you haven't already started a project, or you're someone who feels like, oh, I'm not creative at all, maybe there's something that you've always been curious about, or something that you see other people doing, and when you see it, it opens your heart up and you feel excited and you think, oh, if only I'd love to paint, or I'd love to throw some pots and make some mugs, or oh, that music moves me so much, how I'd love to be able to play the guitar or the piano. So that's a good indication when you see someone else doing something and your heart absolutely opens and you think, oh, if only. And then if that's followed quickly by, but that's not for me because A, B and C, you might be able to identify there a limiting belief that might be useful to question. And if you're someone who has made a start towards creative projects, or maybe you're a professional artist, can you identify a point in a project where you get stuck? The places that end up being a little bit sticky for you, and try and put into words, what is that belief that's coming up for you when that happens? Yeah, so have a think about that now. So see if you can put into words what that message might be. So if you think about when you feel stuck, when you feel blocked, or when you think, oh, I'd love to do that, but it's not for me because of A, B and C, what message appears in your mind when you think about that? What message appears in your mind when you think about that? And you can reflect in your journal or in the comments or classroom and share what's going on for you. So some examples, some common examples might be, I'm not creative. That's a really common one. Or I'm not talented enough. Or I always lose motivation. Or I'll never be good as others. Those types of words are also indicators, always or never, because they're very definite and extreme. So they indicate a kind of ingrained belief. So see if you can identify something, and see if you can make it really clear, even a word, but a short phrase or sentence, so that you've got real clarity on what that is. So just a little minute to do that and think about that, and maybe see what other people are writing in the comments or in the classroom. And just tune in to that. It may be really obvious to you because it may come up time and time again, or it may not be because it may be something that you've just always assumed is true. And you may never have questioned it. So this is an opportunity to maybe question something for the first time. And there's no risk here. There's no risk at all. There's no judgment. It's just an opportunity for you to maybe find a little bit of spaciousness where there didn't seem to be any before. So maybe something that you've always assumed is true about you and creativity can actually be questioned. Maybe you can bring in a little bit of wiggle room there. So this is your opportunity to do that. So we'll move on now to step 2, and that's understanding the origins. So having a bit of a think about where this limiting belief or ingrained thinking might have come from. Because often they come from past experiences, They may have come from school, for example, or from family, could have come from workplaces or other social or cultural experiences or messaging that you feel you've just kind of picked up. But quite often they've just been kind of picked up from someone else or from somewhere else, and until we look at them we don't necessarily realise that maybe we don't even agree with them at all. But because they've not been seen, they're just running away in the background, we've not had an opportunity to question them at all. Could be something as simple as people like me, whatever that is. People like me can't play a musical instrument. People who come from where I come from can't paint, or there are all kinds of cultural, social messages that we pick up just through life, and sometimes they're so subtle and just ingrained in the background of our culture or our family or our schools that we just don't ever question them. So it's useful to think, if you've got a sentence or if you've identified that limiting belief, just have a think, now where did that come from? Whose is that? Because maybe it's not mine at all. Maybe it's not actually what I think or believe at all. Perhaps it's the view of a teacher who was frustrated, or a parent who meant well and wanted me to go in a certain direction, but it wasn't all that helpful. So this is a moment to just kind of think, looking at your limiting beliefs, where do you think the origin of that came from? Where do you think that belief came from? So some examples might be just being told that you're not artistic, for example. Sometimes in schools and through our mainstream education systems, they can be teachers can have very clear ideas sometimes about what is creative, and that this is creative and then this is STEM subjects and all this sort of thing. And actually, it's not very helpful, in my opinion, to label children as one thing or another. But it's so common that children are told, oh, you're a maths person, or you're sporty, or you're artistic, as if you're one of those things, you can't be the other. Now, of course, that's not true. But it's very common that we may have picked things up from school or through our education systems. It might have come through having made steps towards creative goals in the past and then receiving some out of place criticism or opinion, or sometimes maybe showing somebody work or sharing work when it's still in that kind of vulnerable phase, and having someone give you some feedback that wasn't all that useful. So there can be lots of places where you've kind of picked up these ideas. So this is a moment just to reflect on that. And again, you can reflect on this in your journal or in the comments or classroom. And it's really useful to see what other people are experiencing too, and realise that you're not alone. We all share common experiences with having certain ideas about ourselves. It's just very normal and very human. So it's really helpful to share and see how our experiences have commonalities. So when do you first remember hearing this message or feeling this message about yourself? Just take a moment to reflect on that. When do you remember first feeling or hearing this message about yourself? Without sharing anything too personal, you could share a little bit about that. Maybe you can remember a specific time or place where this belief may have started. And that could be school, could just be childhood within your family or friends, could have been at work or as part of criticism, of showing work. I know many people who've been through art school have got wounds from the art crit. So there can be many places where it's shown up. So if you've had a minute to think about that while I've been talking, we'll move on to step 3. And that is understanding a little bit about the function of the belief. So why has it taken root and persisted? Why is this limiting belief or unhelpful thinking that may have come from somebody else, nothing really to do with you or your creativity, but probably more to do with what was going on for them, but something about it has taken hold and it's somehow felt useful to us to hold on to. So that gives an indication that it's serving some kind of function, or it has been serving some kind of function so far. So even though it might be an unhelpful bit of thinking that holds us back or has us kind of not trying new things or stumbling in our creative efforts, in a way it's been trying to serve a purpose. There's been a reason why we've held on to it. So it might be that we feel it's protecting us from risk, from embarrassment or shame or failure, all these things that feel really dangerous to our system. We don't want to be shamed, we don't want to be embarrassed, we don't want to fail. That feels really risky, even though it's not a risk to our physical safety. Sometimes it can feel so intense that it does feel like that. There's some kind of like logic or sense to why we hold on to these things, and that's what this step is about. It's just kind of trying to understand, like, why, not in a judgmental way, why we might have held on to the thought, the belief. So it could have been to avoid criticism, of course, completely logical. It could have been, like I said, to avoid embarrassment or a feeling of shame or failure, or just a sense of wanting to stay in familiar territory because that feels safe. So all these things are really logical if we think about it. We all want to feel safe. We all want to avoid uncomfortable feelings, particularly socially. So this is just to point out the kind of logic of it and the function that the belief might have been serving. And then you can decide, well, actually, do I really need that? Yeah, while we all want to feel safe, we also know that in order to grow and be curious and play and try new things and to be free creatively, we need to just gently broaden that bandwidth and push our boundaries just a little bit, so that we can grow. So it's in that, so we stay in the growth zone. So the comfort zone is often where we want to stay because it's comfortable and it's safe. We often fear that if we make even a little step and push out and expand a little bit into the growth zone, we might be overwhelmed. But we don't have to overwhelm ourselves. We don't have to go from trying, doing our first little painting or exploring with paints or doing a paintbrush to being Picasso, but we often in our mind compare ourselves very unfairly against absolute experts in the fields, and this can often be ways that we trip ourselves up. But it's useful to just kind of think about expanding just a little bit, just into the next step, just into that growth zone. Yeah. So the function of our belief might have been just to keep us in that comfort zone because that feels safe and it's logical. It's logical. So here's a question to consider, and that is to ask yourself, what might this belief be trying to protect me from? So just take a moment. You've identified a limiting belief. You've had a think about where that might have come from. And now just think about what might it be trying to do, or what might it have been trying to do in the past? What might this belief have been trying to protect me from? And like I said, some possible answers might be judgment, fear of failure, disappointment, maybe. Maybe we fear that if we try something, we won't be very good at it. Well, probably at the beginning, but if you enjoy something and you keep on doing it, inevitably you get better. Sometimes we forget that everybody starts at the beginning, and actually we don't have to be good at things to try them. Isn't that a liberating thought? Anything that you want to do, you can try it and you don't have to be good at it. But if you want to try it and you want to do that, you can do that just because you want to. We often forget that, especially as adults. Children don't seem to have a problem with just trying something because they feel like it and they want to. So yeah, maybe it's the thought has been trying to protect you from any of these things. Failure, disappointment, vulnerability is another one. So this belief may have been helping you to feel safe, but you can choose now. You can choose. So yeah, have a think. What might the belief have been protecting you from? And then if you've got an intuition around that, or if you've identified that, and like I say, you can just note that to yourself in your journal, or you can share in the comments or in the classroom. You can then think about understanding the impact. So you've looked at the function, what's it trying to protect you from? Now, the flip side of that is understanding the impact. So how has that shaped your behaviour and your decisions? How is keeping on to this limiting belief and not questioning it, maybe not even being consciously aware of it, what's been the impact of that? So how has it influenced your creative life, the types of things that you feel free to choose to do, to try? How's it impacted on your feelings of freedom, creativity, playfulness, your capacity to just follow your intuition and your sense of playfulness and your desire to discover new things? So it may have been keeping you safe, but it also might have been getting in the way of you experiencing new things and of moving into that growth zone that we talked about. So for example, has this idea stopped you from considering even starting? So has this idea, this limiting belief, made you think, well, I just can't even consider taking guitar lessons or deciding to start to learn a new language or applying for that promotion, for example, in work? So all these things are part of our creativity. From my perspective, anything that we want to do in life, anything that we want to create, and that includes our life and our professions and the ways in which we operate in the world, that's all part of our innate creativity. So creativity is not just about your art projects, music, dancing, all these things. It's really about how you go about living. It's really about how you want to create your life, which is a beautiful thing. It's like we all have the capacity to choose and to create the life that we want to. So it's not just about painting and drawing. So has this thought got in the way of you even starting something new? So what might have been possible, what could be possible in the future? What could be possible if that belief wasn't there? Putting the brakes on, and just going, keep safe, keep in the comfort zone. What might be possible? It's an exciting thought. So has it stopped you sharing work? So maybe you make creative work, or you write, or you do lots of things, but you feel like, whoa, I don't want to take it to the next level and I don't want to share? Has it got in the way of you finishing projects? Because you start projects or you start something, but then somehow you get stuck. You get stuck, and it's this limiting belief that keeps coming up because it keeps sensing that you're maybe moving into the growth zone and it wants to keep you safe. So has it made you doubt your ability? Slowed your progress? So yeah, take a moment to reflect, and if you can synthesize this into a sentence, or maybe even one word to share, I invite you to do that now. So you can share that, you can write that in your journal, share that in the classroom or the comments, a word or sentence describing the impact of this limiting belief and of holding on to this limiting belief. So words might be words like hesitation, procrastination, comparison, silence even. Is it keeping you silent when actually you want to sing, or you want to speak, or you want to write? So have a little think about that. And hopefully you've been thinking as I've been talking. And then if you've had a chance to reflect on this and share that if you feel comfortable, we'll move on to the next step, which is reframing the belief. So challenging the belief. Because, limiting beliefs are very powerful, especially if they've got in the way, they've stopped you doing something you really want to do. That's quite powerful. But even though they feel powerful, they're still just ideas. So really want you to get this sense of that even though something might feel really ingrained, it might feel like a really deeply ingrained cultural or social belief that you've just always had with you, and it's been assumed that is part of you, even if it feels really ingrained like that, at the end of the day, it's just an idea. All it is just unhelpful thinking. And what's great is that you're a creative human, so you're always coming up with new ideas. You can always have fresh, new thinking. You can have new ideas at any time. And often when our mind is free of all the kind of chitter-chatter of habitual thinking, thinking that it keeps coming up, it's very familiar, we hear it all the time. It can get quite boring. It's always there. We know it well. But often, if we make space, we have space for some new thoughts to emerge. So if we can somehow settle down this thinking, and often I think this is part of the process of settling it down, is bringing it into the light where we can see it. So it's not just away in the background noise, the sort of ground of our existence. We're actually looking at it. That's what we're doing right now. We're looking at it. We're bringing it out into the light, examining it, saying, this is interesting. These are thoughts and ideas. Do I want to keep going? Are these helpful? Are these taking me where I want to go? Do I want to continue with them? Or shall I try something else? Because it is powerful, but also when we bring it out into the light, we then have more freedom around it. We have more choice around it. So we can bring in new powerful thinking. We can have fresh ideas. We can have ideas that start with things like, what might happen if? What might happen if I tried A, B, and C? Instead of just these thoughts that feel quite habitual and usually just quite stuck. They're usually just, like I said at the beginning, presented as facts that we need to just accept rather than curious questions. So one way to challenge these thoughts is to actually actively look for evidence that contradicts them. Thinking about your unhelpful thought, your limiting belief that you've identified, think about times when your belief has not been true, when the actual facts have gone against it. So, for example, if you have a limiting belief that says, well, I'm just not creative, think about a time, a real life example, where you have done something creative. You've solved a problem creatively, or you've really enjoyed a creative activity. Maybe you've cooked an absolutely amazing meal that you just made up off the top of your head from scratch. Maybe you went to a fancy dress party once and you came up with an absolutely amazing outfit. Yeah, so just take a moment to find some evidence. So, maybe you received really positive feedback about some work that you did, some creative work, even though in your mind you might have a belief that says you can create, you might be able to paint, but you can't exhibit work, for example. But maybe someone saw your paintings once and said, that's really beautiful, that's amazing. So find some evidence that contradicts this ingrained limiting belief. So something, it can be small, but it just has to be like evidence, real kind of evidence that you can show contradicts the belief. So one small example, and see if you can identify it. And if you'd like to share it, then you can do that. And you can do that in the classroom or the comments. It'd be really interesting to see. Often it's a kind of surprise to us, and it's really interesting, things can come up that seem really obvious. I definitely had a limiting belief that said learning languages is for other people. I can't possibly do that. In fact, it was stronger than that. I had a belief that learning a new language was actually impossible. The thought was, it is impossible for me to learn another language. And it was just one day, because I really wanted to start to learn Spanish. And one day it suddenly occurred to me, well, that does not make sense. That does not make any logical sense, because the evidence shows that billions of people around the world speak multiple languages, and it's just an innate human capacity to be able to learn another language. And since as other people can do it, and I'm a human too, it just doesn't make logical sense that it's impossible. So there's an example of where it seems so obvious. I mean, it seems really silly to say that I held this belief that it's impossible, but I really did. I really did think that for me, that's impossible. And it took me actually sitting down and thinking about it to find the evidence, the glaring evidence that is just not true. Yes, I encourage you to find an example from your own life where you've been able to counteract the belief. So despite this belief, you can find evidence to the contrary. And then we'll move on now to step 6, and that is to transform the belief. So maybe we can think about replacing it with something more useful, something that fits who we are and where we are now in life. So this is an opportunity to create a new story about yourself, and a story and an idea, a belief that supports your creativity and supports you and the things that you want to do, that supports your freedom. I invite you to construct for yourself an empowering statement that you can consciously be aware of, and that you can turn to when this belief maybe comes up, when it's maybe getting in the way. So I invite you to find for yourself an empowering statement that is helpful. So it might be the counterbalance to your limiting belief, or it might be something different. So some examples might be, if your limiting belief was, I'm just not creative, you might have, I am creative in my own way. for example. Or I am learning to trust my creativity. Or even I am curious and open to creative exploration. So think about this now. Think about constructing a sentence for yourself that feels really empowering and that is set in the positive. It's what you want to be moving towards. So it's not your limiting belief, what you can't do, what's not for you, but where you are now and what you want now. So beginning with I am. So I am ... And like I said, it could be I am creative in my own way. I am learning to trust my creativity. Or I am curious and open to exploration. Or here's one that I like. I am a creative, I am a creative adventurer. Or I am developing my creative voice. So I encourage you to make it simple. Make it really simple, not a whole mission statement, not a whole manifesto for now. You can do that another time. But just a really simple statement that you can remember and that you can bring in and that you can write on a post-it note and stick it on your desktop or wherever it is that you'll see it, or on your fridge or in your studio. So a new empowering statement that starts with I am. And I would love you to share these. I would love to see what you come up with and what you are fueling yourself and empowering yourself with. This is a real moment of you taking back control of something that's been holding you back. So you've had an opportunity to look at it and to make a choice. And then this next step is about you taking action to empower yourself with the direction that you want to go in, with a choice. So I am. What are you? Maybe I am creative. Maybe I am curious about creativity. Maybe I am creative in my own way. So something that feels kind and empowering and just perfect for you and where you are now. Because what may have been right in the story may have been something that was relevant for or useful for a different version of you, maybe a very small child version of you. And I think everybody here now are adults. So you get to choose more and you get to rewrite your stories and you get to decide. You get to decide what your story about creativity is, and you get to choose creative freedom and fun and play and exploration. So I'd love for you to share that in the comments or in the classroom, and we can inspire each other with our new statements. And then the last step in this process is to take action. So I said a little bit earlier on that it's action that counts. It's what we actually do that counts. So it's very powerful when you have whatever your limiting belief is, it's so powerful when you act contrary to that. When you say, well, okay, I know, thank you, limiting belief, for letting me know that it's impossible for me to learn another language, but I'll just go ahead and take a Spanish class and see what happens. Thank you. So it's very powerful, it's very empowering just to move forward and take action based on what you want to do, what you choose to do, not what your limiting beliefs have been telling you. And you can be very kind to them. You can say, thank you so much. I see that you're trying to protect me here from whatever, but I'm just going to try it anyway. So it's very powerful, and that's the step we're moving on to now. We're looking at taking action. So we're looking at choosing a small action, a small step Yeah, a small step. So which small step, what small step might help you to move in the direction of your creative goals and away from your limiting belief? So maybe it's something like just sketching for 5 minutes, or writing one paragraph each day, or taking a photo of something interesting, just sort of flexing your creative muscles. Maybe you're going to buy a notebook and start doing a little bit of jotting down some ideas for a story. Or maybe you are going to return to a paused project or something that you started and got stuck with. Maybe you're going to return to that with your new statement, of choice and freedom about how you want your creativity to be and what's possible for you now. So I encourage you to make it a small, achievable step. Think of it as a tiny experiment. Think of it as something to try. This is part of your playfulness and your curiosity towards your creativity. So have a think about one small creative action you can take this week. Something you can do quite soon to act upon. Reframing and proving to yourself that even though you might have a limiting belief, you can still move forward. You can still move towards your goals and your dreams regardless, because you are free and you do have a choice. So have a think about one small step you could take, or one sort of creative action that you could take. And I would love it if you'd share that. That would be so nice to see. And again, we can encourage each other. So if you want to share that in the comments or the classroom, I would love to know what creative action you're going to take this week to test out your newfound freedom. And this is going to take practice. It's going to take curiosity and a bit of playfulness. Like I said, see this as a tiny experiment. Just test out, well, what happens when I behave and act contrary to my limiting belief? What happens when I say, I hear you, limiting belief. I hear you, unhelpful thinking. Thank you for your input, and I'm going to go ahead and do what I choose to do. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So have a think about something that might seem small, but it could be very powerful. Often the first steps are the most powerful ones, because they're the ones that get us unstuck and get the momentum going. So even if it's something very small, it can still be very powerful. So have a think about that. And as you think about that, and share it if you'd like to, we will come towards the end of our session. And this is just a little bit of a closing reflection, that these limiting beliefs, this unhelpful thinking that you've had about your creativity, it might have been a really present part of your story so far. It might have been in the background, just kind of quietly working away without you even knowing it. But it doesn't have to be part of your future. You are free. You are free to write your own story when it comes to creativity. You do have that creative freedom. You're free to play. You're free to explore. You're safe to play and explore, and to follow your natural curiosity when it comes to your creativity and what you'd like to do and what you'd like to experience in this world. So I want to say well done for showing up today and for participating in this process, and I hope it's been helpful for you. And I hope you're feeling really inspired to take action, to take even that small action step towards countering whatever your limiting belief was saying, just to kindly question it and move towards what you choose rather than what's been told to you maybe by someone else a long time ago. So I really hope today's been helpful. And yeah, I really encourage you to make a note of, if you've shared in the chat, your I am statement. I really encourage you to write that down for yourself and put it somewhere you can see it. Yeah, put it somewhere you can see it often, whether that's in your kitchen, in your studio, on your computer. Just have it somewhere where you'll see it a lot, and remind yourself of what you're choosing moving forward. Yeah. So your creativity belongs to you. You are creative, you are free, and you're safe to create. And the world is waiting for whatever it is that you want to create there. There's only one of you. You're absolutely unique in this world. There's no one else in the world who can do what you do in the way that you do it. So yeah, it's my joy to remind you of that and encourage you to move towards what you feel is wanting to emerge for you. And like I said before, for me, creativity takes on so many forms. It's not just about drawing or painting or dancing or making music, although it is those things too, but it's everything that we do to express ourselves in the world. And yeah, I want to encourage you all to feel free to do that, because like I said before, you are absolutely unique. There is no one like you anywhere in the world or universe as far as we know, and that fact just blows my mind. There really is no one that can do what you do in the way that you do it, and that's so precious and really worth investing in. That's really worth paying attention to. So I hope that you feel valued, and I hope that after this session you feel a bit more connected to yourself and to others as well around the world. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and I hope we can stay in connection. So I'll sign off now, but I hope we see each other again very soon, and wishing you a wonderful day and sending love from Scotland. Okay, take care everyone. Bye.